Good morning, everyone. It looks like it's gonna rain here. Yeah, it's kind of, it started out sunny and now it's overcast and getting a little dark. But you know what? It's done this every single day this week. Bright sunshine, then everything starts to get dark, and then, wow, it just starts to rain for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then it goes back to sunshine. So that's a good thing. But yeah, I hope everybody's going to have a really good day. And right now, I'm going to have a little bit of breakfast. Yeah, I'm having some strawberries. I love strawberries. So yeah, I'm going to eat my strawberries, and I hope that you'll want to stick around for a little bit of my day, and I'll talk to all of you in just a little while. Hello again, everyone. Well, tomorrow, Rick is coming home from Colorado Springs. So I thought that I would make him some zucchini muffins. And I found this online from the author, what she calls herself a sweet basil. And that's what attracted me because I love basil. But yeah, there's no basil in this recipe, but I just found the ingredients to be interesting because what it takes is one large zucchini or 2 cups of the shredded zucchini. Once it's shredded would be about 2 cups. I had to use 2 because mine were little. But anyways, besides that, it takes 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 cups of flour, teaspoon of baking soda, teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half a cup of brown sugar, a quarter of a cup of sour cream, and 2 eggs, a teaspoon of vanilla, and a quarter of a cup of oil. I'm using olive oil. She suggested canola oil. I don't use canola oil. It affects my inflammation, so that's a no-no in this household. And plus 2 tablespoons of oil. And I have the 2 tablespoons of oil in the bowl, and I have the brown sugar in a bowl because this is actually going to be the topping when they're done. So let's get started on this. Now the first thing it tells us to do is to preheat our oven to 350, which I've already done. And it says that in a bowl, we're going to whisk together the sugar, the flour, the baking soda, baking powder, the salt, and the cinnamon, which I have all in this little bowl here. All those spices, and the sugar, and the flour. Once we have all that incorporated, we're going to take a small bowl and we're going to whisk together the sour cream, the eggs, the vanilla, and the oil just until it's combined. And that looks very well combined, but apparently what she's calling a small bowl, this is too small because I have to mix my zucchini in here. So just a minute, I'm going to go get a little bit bigger bowl. I think this size bowl is going to work better to add my zucchini. And we're just going to stir. Let me get a spoon here. This together. Now we're just going to move back to our dry mixture here, and we're going to create a well. And we are going to put the wet ingredients and fold it into our dry mixture. And we're just going to fold. That's literally what she's saying. Just fold from side to side. Turning it over with our wrist, we're folding in the ingredients and continue until all of them are incorporated, but she stresses we do not want to overmix. And when this is all combined, what we're going to do is we're going to add it to either a greased or paper-lined muffin tin. It's going to bake for 20 to 25 minutes, and it says that it needs to cool before we remove them, at least for a minute or two before we remove them from the pan. So this looks good to me. It's supposed to make 12 muffins. And I will stick this in the oven and put on the timer, and yeah, I'll bring it back when they're all done. So here are my zucchini muffins straight out of the oven, and they look wonderful. They smell delicious, and it's been about a minute, so I'm gonna go ahead and take them out of the pan and put that topping on. We'll see how this works. So it says we're just to take them out of the pan, and they come out very nicely. Of course, I mean, I had paper, so it should be coming out pretty easily, but they're nice and formed, and it took exactly the 20 minutes, not any longer. So now, according to the directions, I am to take my muffin and put it into the oil, and then immediately put it into, whoops, you can't see that. There we go, the brown sugar. Okay, I had to bring it back because what was happening is the sugar was getting all clumped from the oil. So what I decided to do was just dip the top of the muffin into the oil, but then I'm spooning the sugar over it. Same thing, making a little bit more of a mess, but it's not clumping up and getting this all oily. So that would be my advice. Maybe it was just me, I don't know. Can't imagine how you could do it unless you were to brush on the oil. But this is working for me. They look really good. And yeah, they're still really warm, but I gotta give it a try, don't you think? Oh wow, that looks really nice. Look at that. It's really hot. Oh, but it's really good. It is really moist too. Wonderful. Talk to y'all in just a little while. For today's devotion, we are going to be reading in Mark chapter 7, verses 6 and 7. He replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are but rules taught by men. These are insightful words, and our Lord plunges right to the heart of the issue. When the Pharisees asked him, why do your disciples not observe the traditions? He points out to them the effect that tradition has upon our lives. It produces hypocrites. And Jesus is very blunt with them. In fact, in Matthew's account of this story, we're told that the disciples came to him afterward and asked him if he realized that the Pharisees were offended when they heard what he said. What was happening at this time is that the Pharisees and scribes were following Jesus around looking for anything that they could criticize him on or accuse him of violating Jewish law. And here, Jesus, along with his disciples, were accused of eating bread with defiled hands. They didn't wash their hands before coming to the table. Now, don't get confused about the practicality and common sense of washing hands, but rather see the point that Jesus was getting at between tradition and doctrine. I like what Warren Wiersbe said about this. It was not the law that protected the tradition, but the tradition that protected the law. Jesus is pointing out the result of tradition. He uses the words of the prophet Isaiah, which says, therefore, the Lord said, inasmuch as these people draw near with their mouths and honor me with their lips, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the commandment of men. According to Isaiah, there is that which consists of right words, but wrong attitudes. Everything outward is right, but inwardly the mind and the heart are wrong. That, Jesus says, is hypocrisy. To look as if you are doing something religious and worshipful and God related, but inside have an entirely different attitude. Through the years, I have heard many say that they don't attend church because churches are filled with hypocrites. And perhaps what they're really saying is you use great words, wonderful words, but you don't really mean them. You talk about love, but you don't love. You talk about forgiveness, but you don't forgive. You talk about living for the Lord, but you live like the rest of the world. You see, that is what tradition can do to us. It externalizes religion and makes it outward instead of inward. As long as we are fulfilling the prescribed outward form, we think we are acceptable before God, and that is the terrible danger of tradition. Then Jesus goes on to clarify in Mark, later on in the chapter, by saying that the difference between law and tradition and how it is distorted to the point of defilement. When he had called all the multitudes to himself, he said to them, "Hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him. But the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man." Dr. David McKenna said it well. Jesus makes the heart of man the source of sin. Jesus is saying that it isn't what we ingest that defiles us. It's what our heart does with it. Hypocrisy is defined as the practice of claiming to have moral standards or beliefs to which one's own behavior does not conform, where there is a false appearance of virtue or goodness while concealing one's real character or inclinations. Everyone, at times, can have the right words with the wrong attitude, but we must recognize it and admit it. As Christians, we need to be careful and not allow ourselves to be fooled into thinking that because we do things the right way and say the right words and believe the right doctrines, that we're pleasing to God. And with that, I want to remind you, life happens. Let's enjoy it. And as I close this devotion, I want to make a point on those who say they don't attend church because there are too many hypocrites. But the fact is, every church is full of hypocrites because we're all sinners, and yet we claim to follow God. But I do understand that some churches' level of hypocrisy can deter people from getting involved. But on its own intellectual merits, using the hypocrisy argument is a lousy excuse to stay away from church. Because it's like saying, I'm never going back to that hospital. It's full of sick people. Because a hospital exists to make sick people well. With no sick people, it wouldn't be doing its job. In the same way, the church exists to make spiritually sick people spiritually well, to help people achieve spiritual health and wholeness. So from that perspective, if a church does its job right, it's always going to be attracting new hypocrites to the church. Just something to consider. God bless, and I will talk to you all again next week.